Now, what a joke. For days, Treasurer Jim Chalmers has been hyping up the report that he released today. The Intergenerational Report, the challenges we face a generation from now. I thought, this will be big. So I said, get me Ross Greenwood. If this is so big, changing the nation, Ross, who's host of Business Now on Sky News, he's the man to explain it. Ross Greenwood, thanks for joining me. I've just read the media headlines from this report. Actually, there's about none. It seems a bit of a yawn fest. But some outlet called Hello Care did go big on it. Ageing population puts pressure on future government, which is not actually big news. Ross, was this report a waste of our time?
No, not necessarily. I always like the intergenerational report. It does give you a little bit of a snapshot, but let's be honest, it's a guess, and that's the best guess they've got at the moment. But it also sets the government up for something which I worry about a lot, and that is our superannuation system. Remember, there's more than $3 trillion in superannuation, and when Paul Keating set it up brilliantly in the past, it was to actually overcome the need for government to have to support you in your old age. They said, support yourself. Now it's come to a situation where the government is saying, well, actually, we're not sure if it's your money anymore. It might be ours, because what we now want you to do is during your lifetime to live off that. We don't want you to actually give it to your kids. So don't try and use it as a savings vehicle to actually build up capital. But the problem of this is you don't know when you're going to die, so you don't know how much money you need in superannuation. So I worry about this intergenerational report almost softening us up because they've got problems on taxes as to whether if there's money in your super pot at the end of your life, rather than going straight to your kids, that it actually then is subject to more taxes. You call them death taxes if you like, or superannuation taxes, but that's what I sense that the government might be eventually trying to soften us up for.
Bet your life on it. Bet your life on it. Actually, the problem isn't with taxes, the problem is with spending. But on to something more important then, Ross. Well, for now. It's scaring me how terribly the Albanese government's plan is going, the plan to get rid of coal-fired power stations and make us use wind and solar instead. Suddenly you've got state government saying, hot damn, the green power won't be there. We'll actually have to pay coal-fired generators to keep going. Victoria said it will pay AGL to keep its giant Loy Yang station open. And the New South Wales government is considering paying Origin Energy to keep open the Eraring generator, which the Origin boss has told you is going to cost us a lot, but could be inevitable. Here he is.
If the government were to extend the life of Eraring, they would have to pay you commensurate with the return on the capital that you would require to keep it open.
I'm expecting that we'll have some discussions at some point in time because everyone want to get the right outcomes for the market, the system and the customers.
Ross, this green energy revolution is turning into a complete disaster, as most revolutions do.
Well, yes, and you heard what is an increasingly protectionist government, Chris Bowen, the former Treasurer, you might remember, basically saying the other day, as our sort of energy minister, that he might put tariffs or extra taxes on imported steel, on imported aluminium, on imported cement, because they're made with traditional energy sources, which is much cheaper than the green energy sources that we'd be making the same things from. And so they would need protection. Now, this is crazy stuff that we can't even get the cheapest goods from around the world to support our economy, to support our lives. And all of that just raises inflation and therefore keeps your interest rates higher. So this is where you've got to be really listening carefully to what the governments are saying, to what their proposals are, because even the notion of getting rid of a very cheap electricity source when you haven't got the next source of electricity ready to go, that is highly dangerous to the electricity grid. And even this week, you're going to hear from the energy regulator, AEMO, about whether, in fact, our electricity system will be robust based on the current expectations of the rollout of those coal-fired power stations and the end of their lives.
And what's really, I mean, we're cruising for an absolute disaster here, Ross, in my opinion, potentially. This is happening. We're running out of electricity. The price is going through the roof at exactly the time that BHP, the boss of BHP today, gave a warning. We can't keep relying on our biggest exports getting into the biggest market because it could be pancaking China.
Well, precisely. So right now you've got China, which has got an ageing population like Australia has. So go back to that intergenerational report. It's also built much of its infrastructure. So its demand for steel going forward is going to decline dramatically. And so therefore Australia, which has really come, I think, complacent about the notion that we've got coal and we've got iron ore exports that really prop up the government, prop up the budget, prop up your lifestyle, that really they are going to be forever. Well, they're not. That's according to the boss of BHP. And Australia has got to pivot really quickly into other areas, nickel, into lithium, into, copper in particular. And if we don't get the settings right, if state governments get too greedy, hitting these mining companies with too big a royalty, which they're doing right now, then ultimately that investment goes elsewhere. The jobs go elsewhere. The taxes go elsewhere. And this is something that Australian politicians, while they're pondering where they're going to raise taxes from in the future, they've got to be highly conscious of the real dynamics of Australia's economy and whether the things they take for granted right now are going to be there in the future.
And just one final thing quickly, Ross, just to add to look, there's just so many incompetent decisions, in my view, being made that add to our cost of living. Here's one. The Albanese government's decision to ban Qatar Airlines from adding another 21 flights to Australia, never given a clear reason for doing something that's looking increasingly like just a big favour to Qantas from its Labor mates to keep ticket prices high. And our travel industry chiefs, they are wanting answers too. Here's one.
The government blocking these extra flights when we desperately need more capacity into Australia was inexplicable, and the explanation obviously from the Minister King just does not stack up.
So those explanations don't stack up.
Well, so the explanation from Catherine King was it was done to protect jobs. Now, why do you need to protect jobs when the unemployment rate is close to a 50-year low? That's my point about this. So in other words, if you'd let those extra flights come in, you'd have put downward pressure on airfares, which the broader community would have enjoyed and which quite clearly would have actually taken an inflationary aspect out of our economy, which would have helped to lead to lower interest rates sooner. So what jobs are you protecting here? And why are you protecting those jobs? So this is something that even this week we'll hear from Alan Joyce, the Chief Executive of Qantas, about. But what is quite clear right now in my mind is that this government, with a number of its actions on climate, on that superannuation policy, on this in particular, is looking like one of the most protectionist governments that we have seen since the 1960s. And yet they're trying to claim that they're a reformist government. Well, their actions right now do not show that.
Yeah, but let's be clear. When we say protect jobs, protect Qantas jobs, they don't help Virgin Jobs, which has a deal with Qatar. They don't help the tourism outlet, things like hotels and all that. They would have gained from more people coming in from overseas. This is a really bad mates rates kind of decision. Ross Greenwood, thank you so much indeed for your time.
Quite okay, Andrew.